Oh my God, you guys. Okay, so I've been going down some serious rabbit holes lately, like deep dives into stuff that just, it makes your skin crawl, you know? We hear things, whispers, theories that sound so out there, so completely insane, that our first instinct is to just laugh them off. No way, we say, that's just crazy talk. People get labeled, dismissed, told they're wearing tinfoil hats. They said it was nonsense, until it wasn't. And that's the part that keeps me up at night, the part that makes me question, well, everything. Think about it. The stories that were once confined to shadowy internet forums, the hushed conversations that people were afraid to have too loudly. What if some of those weren't just stories? What if the people we called paranoid were actually onto something huge, something terrifyingly real? It's like we're conditioned to trust, to believe what we're told by the people in charge, by the news, by the history books. But what happens when that trust is shattered, not by some wild guess, but by cold, hard proof, by documents stamped classified suddenly seeing the light of day? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That the reality we think we know could be curated, manipulated, that things we were assured could happen actually. Today we're not just dipping our toes in, we're plunging headfirst into the deep end. We're looking at the conspiracies that made people scoff, roll their eyes, and call you crazy, until the day the truth clawed its way out and proved them horrifyingly right. This is heavy stuff, guys, so buckle up. See how far they could push the human mind before it completely fractured. Alright, if MK Ultra didn't freak you out enough, hold on, because this next one, this is the kind of stuff that makes you question who the enemies are. Operation Northwoods. This was in 1962, okay? We're talking peak Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis is looming, tensions are sky high, and the US military leadership like the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the top guys, they come up with this, their goal, to drum up public and international support for a war against Cuba, against Fidel Castro. And how are they going to do that? Oh, just by staging a series of false flag terrorist attacks against American citizens, and then blaming it all on Cuba. They proposed hijacking planes, blowing up US ships, even orchestrating violent terrorism in American cities. They talked about faking funerals for mock victims. It's insane. Think about the level of cynicism here. They were willing to potentially sacrifice American lives, or at the very least, terrify the entire nation, just to create a pretext for war. They drafted plans to develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington. They even considered faking a Cuban attack on Guantanamo Bay. The documents literally outline scenarios like we could blow up a US ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba, or we could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area. Okay, so we've talked about the CIA, we've talked about the military, now let's talk about the FBI, because oh boy, did they have their own dark secrets. This one is called COINTELPRO, which stands for Counterintelligence Program, and it ran from 1956 all the way to 1971. Its purpose? To expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize domestic political organizations that the FBI deemed subversive. And who did they deem subversive? Well, pretty much anyone who was challenging the status quo. We're talking about civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, feminist movements, and groups like the Black Panther Party. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prime target. The FBI under J. Edgar Hoover was obsessed with him. They wiretapped his phones, bugged his hotel rooms, tried to find any dirt they could to discredit him, even sent him an anonymous letter suggesting he commit suicide. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, tasked with upholding the law, was actively trying to destroy the life of one of America's most important civil rights leaders. The tactics they used were straight out of a spy novel, but a really dirty, underhanded one. They forged documents, spread false rumors to create infighting within groups, used informants to sow discord, instigated violence, and engaged in psychological warfare. Chapter 4. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident, the lie that launched a war. This one is heavy, you guys, because it led to so much devastation. The Gulf of Tonkin Incident. August 1964. The official story that went out was that North Vietnamese torpedo boats launched an unprovoked attack against a U.S. destroyer, the USS Maddox, in the Gulf of Tonkin. Then, 2 days later, another attack supposedly happened. This was the justification, the spark, that President Lyndon B. Johnson used to massively escalate the Vietnam War. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, giving him almost unlimited power to wage war. Millions of lives were lost in that war, American soldiers, Vietnamese soldiers, and so many civilians. Entire landscapes were scarred, a generation was traumatized, and it was all predicated on these unprovoked attacks. For decades, that was the official narrative. If you questioned it, if you suggested that maybe, just maybe, the government wasn't telling the whole truth, you were branded as un-American, a sympathizer, or just plain ignorant of the facts. Chapter 5. Big Tobacco's Deadly Secret They Knew All Along. Okay, let's shift gears a little, but this one is just as insidious, just as much of a betrayal of public trust. We're talking about Big Tobacco. For decades, tobacco companies ran these glamorous ads. Doctors recommending cigarettes, movie stars looking cool while smoking, slogans telling you how smooth and satisfying their brands were. And all the while, they were publicly, vehemently denying any link between smoking and serious diseases like cancer, emphysema, heart disease. They funded their own research institutes that, surprise, surprise, always found inconclusive results or downplayed the risks. They had armies of lawyers and PR people whose entire job was to cast doubt, to create confusion, to fight any regulation. The science isn't settled, they'd say. There's no definitive proof. They portrayed people who were concerned about the health effects of smoking as alarmists, as anti-pleasure nannies. It was a massive, coordinated campaign of deception. But here's the kicker, the part that makes your blood boil. Their own internal research, going back as far as the 1950s and 60s, was telling them a very different story. Their own scientists knew. Chapter 6. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study, A Betrayal of Trust. This one is just heartbreaking and infuriating on so many levels. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study. Officially, it was called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. It began in 1932, run by the U.S. Public Health Service, and it went on for until 1972, 40 years. The study involved around 600 black men in rural Alabama, about 400 of whom had syphilis, and 200 who did not, serving as a control group. The men were told they were being treated for bad blood, a vague local term for various ailments. They were promised free medical exams, free meals, and burial insurance. What they were told was that they had syphilis. And crucially, they were not given treatment for it, even after penicillin became the standard, effective cure for syphilis in the 1940s. The researchers actively prevented these men from receiving treatment elsewhere. The purpose of the study? To observe the natural progression of untreated syphilis, to see what it did to the human body if left to run its course. Outro, what else are they hiding? Wow, okay, that was a lot. Going through these one after another, it's heavy. MK Ultra, Operation Northwoods, COINTELPRO, Gulf of Tonkin, Big Tobacco, Tuskegee. These aren't just stories, you guys. These were real events, real deceptions with real victims. They were dismissed as crazy theories, as paranoia, until the undeniable proof came out. And every single time, the truth was more disturbing than most people could have imagined. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? It forces you to ask some really uncomfortable questions. If these monumental deceptions happened, if they were covered up for so long, what else is out there? What other crazy theories floating around right now might actually have a kernel of truth? Or be entirely true, just waiting for that one document to be leaked, that one whistleblower to come forward? It's a scary thought, but it's also a crucial one. It reminds us that blind trust can be dangerous, and that questioning things, even when it's uncomfortable, is sometimes necessary. So, what do we do with this? I don't know, honestly, it's a lot to process, but I think the first step is just being aware that these things happen. History, even the parts that make us deeply uncomfortable, has so much to teach us. It teaches us to be vigilant, to demand transparency, and to listen, really listen, even when an idea sounds out there. Because sometimes the craziest stories are the ones that turn out to be true.